Toronto FC have finally made the long-awaited signing of a striker this offseason. And that comes in the form of 25-year-old Norwegian striker Ola Brynhildson. TFC has signed Ola Brynhildson on loan from FC Midtjylland in the Danish top flight. A 5'10", number 9, Brynhildson has only made 6 appearances in the Danish Superliga so far this season for Midtjylland, scoring 2 goals. However, last season he was on loan to Molde in his native Norway, scoring 10 goals in 11 appearances in the top flight of Norwegian football the year before. And he consistently lit up the Norwegian top flight in the previous few years. In 2023, scoring 7 goals in 15 seasons for Molde, and in 2022, scoring 11 goals in 19 appearances before getting his move to Denmark. Now, on loan to Toronto FC, loan to buy, he is the new attempt at Toronto FC having a targeted allocation money number 9. And with 4 appearances for the Norwegian national team, he has been good enough to gain international attention. Now, everything about the signing is very eerily similar to Jesus Jimenez, a guy who had some decent success in Europe, albeit not in the top European leagues, and then came over in their mid-20s to Toronto FC had a decent start and then fell off the map pretty quickly. Now, Brynhildson is a striker who I don't know enough about to make a solid opinion on. I'm interested to see how he'll perform as Toronto FC's designated number 9 going into this season, and he's going to have Corbianu and Bernadeschi feeding him from the wing, so hopefully he finally is the central option for Bernadeschi to feed into that will allow Bernadeschi to be successful out wide and allow him to be successful in the center. Only time will tell, but one thing we're all certain of is this is not the striker signing that we were all hoping for. We were all hoping for a designated player striker. For some reason, it seems like buying down Richie Larea to a DP level contract was not an option anymore. Not sure what happened there, but the real reason why we can't sign a DP striker, and the real reason why it took until quite literally the last week before the season for us to finally make the striker signing and finally make a signing that wasn't Corbianu, is Lorenzo Insigne. Because plot twist, this is not the we signed Ola Brynhildson video. No. This is let's talk about Lorenzo Insigne. January 2022, 6 months after Lorenzo Insigne captained Italy to winning the 2020 Euro Cup, it is announced that the Napoli captain will be signing with Toronto FC in the summer, and TFC fans went wild. This was the biggest name to have signed for the club since Jermaine Defoe, which should have been a warning. And in a small Italian winger designated player, flashes of Sebastian Giovinco memories are being brought back. Insigne was supposed to come in and light up MLS, and coming in at the highest salary in Major League Soccer, the expectations were massive. And to make life as comfortable for Insigne as possible, TFC brought in fellow Italians Crescito and Bernadeschi to try and make the transition to Toronto as light as it possibly could be for Insigne, and also give him familiar faces to pass the ball to. And right off the bat, when the summer started, the Insigne introduction to Toronto FC had some issues. The debut match was delayed because of his injuries a couple of times. It took a couple weeks, but finally that fateful match against Charlotte FC in Toronto in late July, Bernadeschi and Insigne both playing for Toronto FC, and they had a hell of a game. TFC won 4-0, the place was pumping, and the future looked very bright for Toronto FC. And all in all, the 2022 season coming into that point, TFC was already so far down the standings that the Italians really couldn't salvage it. And Bernadeschi and Insigne both had decent performances. Insigne with 6 goals in 11 games, and while the end of the season didn't go the way people had hoped, it was a promising look for the future for Toronto FC heading into 2023, now that they had both of their Italian designated players for a full season. And with all the hype, the 2023 Toronto FC season went miserably. The club had a record low, just 4 wins and 22 points in Major League Soccer, the worst in the team's history. And Insigne only had 4 goals in 20 matches, and the season was just riddled with him constantly beefing first with Bob Bradley, and then not following through and not committing under Terry Dunfield. Rumors that he faked an injury for several weeks because his brother wasn't allowed on the charter plane. It was an unmitigated disaster of a season. And yet Insigne got to dodge quite a bit of heat for it, as most of the blame was placed on Bob Bradley and his inability to coach this team, his inability to develop the youth, his inability to get the most out of his expensive Italian designated players. And so, going into 2024, Insigne was given another chance, this time with star Canadian national team head coach John Herdman at the helm. And to be fair to Lorenzo Insigne, the 2024 season started off quite a bit better. Through the first few months of the 2024 season, Toronto FC was in a playoff spot. Things looked to be good. There was promise. Insigne had a couple of good performances. Bernardeschi was performing well in those first few months under John Herdman. But I said going into the season, John Herdman is a national team coach who has never coached a club team before. What's going to happen after his initial excitement wears off, because he's never had to coach guys for more than 6 weeks at a time before. And pretty much right on cue, 3 months into the season, the wheels started to fall off. The injury bug bit the club and Insigne again. Morale fell through the floor, and then Dronegate happened, and John Herdman's reputation fell to the basement, and Toronto FC's performance fell with it. Insigne ends the 2024 season with just 4 goals in 23 matches, and yet again visible that he does not want to be here. And so after 2 full, completely disappointing seasons in which Lorenzo Insigne combined for 8 goals in 2 full seasons in Major League Soccer, as the second highest paid player in the league behind Lionel Messi in that time, it became clear at the end of 2024, Insigne has to go. And so new coach Robin Fraser comes in. Lorenzo Insigne, not a part of his plans. Jason Hernandez as the general manager makes it clear to Lorenzo Insigne this offseason, not a part of the plan. And they provide Lorenzo Insigne this offseason with 3 potential moves where TFC, by all reports, will buy out most of Insigne's contract and make sure that he gets paid most of the money that he is owed. And we give him offers to Turkey, to Spain, and back home to Italy. And he turns all 3 of them down. And the plan for this offseason was that Lorenzo Insigne was going to take one of those 3 deals, and then we could open up a designated player spot and bring in a designated player at striker to replace him, because obviously these designated players on the wings weren't working. We get Corbianu, who's a fantastic young promising winger on allocation money to fill in Lorenzo Insigne's spot at the left wing, and then we get a designated player striker. That was the plan. And so all offseason, this is not a joke, for the entirety of this offseason, we have been sitting and waiting for Lorenzo Insigne to make his decision of where he's going to go for this season, because all the plans for the offseason only work if the designated player spot is open. And guess what? After we present Insigne with those 3 offers, he chooses not to go. Because it's not enough that he's not performing. No, he has become like a supervillain whose sole purpose is to destroy Toronto FC, because he won't perform on the field, and now he won't leave, allowing us to use that designated player spot on someone who actually will play. And so apparently Robin Fraser has told him that he's not part of his plans, and TFC is threatening to sit him for the remainder of his contract if he does not pick a place to leave the club. But now we still need to find another deal for him, and we still need to find a deal that he will accept. And at this point, it's unclear if he's just going to be perfectly happy just sitting for Toronto FC, collect his $13 million a year, and not play soccer, which would be the worst case scenario, as then we are literally burning $13 million a year on nothing and getting nothing out of it. And in the meantime, while Insigne didn't take any of those deals, now all of a sudden, in the last week before the regular season starts, we're in panic mode, signing Brynhildson as our targeted allocation money striker when the plan was not to get a targeted allocation money striker. We're just reverting back to, for the 3rd time after Owusu and Jimenez, hopefully a targeted allocation money striker will do the job when multiple times in a row it has proven it hasn't. And the center back issue has not been sorted, and the midfield issue has not been sorted, and we should still probably get another winger for when Bernardeschi or someone else inevitably gets injured. Like, the team is not ready to start this season. We have literally 5 days until our season starts, and we've made 2 signings in the off season. We have not addressed nearly anywhere near as many of the issues as we had, and the sole reason why we haven't is Lorenzo Insigne. He's ruined us on the pitch and off the pitch. We couldn't plan for the season because the plan for the season rested entirely on where he was going to go and whether or not he was going to leave. And the fact that we got 3 deals set up and he refused all 3 of them is insane. Like, Jermaine Defoe was bad, but at least Jermaine Defoe wanted to play football back in England, and he went back and took the first deal we could have possibly given him to get rid of him. Lorenzo Insigne, I don't even understand what's going on right now. Apparently he doesn't want to play football and doesn't care if he doesn't play football. Apparently he's perfectly happy just sitting and collecting the paycheck. And that is a terrifying prospect for Toronto FC when he still has multiple years left on his deal. The fact that he apparently is perfectly happy to sit and not play, because he's made it fairly clear the past 2 seasons that he doesn't want to play for Toronto FC. And so if he's turning down offers that would basically pay him all the money we owe him and allow him to play football somewhere else, and he's turning those down, apparently he just doesn't want to play football at all. And so Toronto FC is stuck with a $13 million footballer who doesn't want to play football. And that is the worst possible situation that could happen. This is the worst possible outcome of the designated player rule in MLS, is you spend a boatload of money on a big name European player and they decide they don't want to play anymore and that they'll just take the money, sit, not play, and now you cannot replace them as one of your 3 designated player spots in a league where it is so important to use all 3 of those designated player spots well to be competitive. We signed him back in 2022 to a 4-year contract, and little did we know that that would make us irrelevant for 4 years. And now Toronto FC sits. Once a storied club, once 2017, which was now 8 years ago, the model for how an MLS franchise should be built, is now a cautionary tale of what not to do and how not to use your designated player spots, as quite literally Toronto FC has gone from having the best case scenario, best usage of your designated player spots in MLS to the worst case scenario, worst management of your designated player spots. I honestly did not think it could be possible for anyone to beat the bloody big disappointment, and Lorenzo Insigne has, with flying colors. And I think when it's all said and done, Lorenzo Insigne will go down as the worst designated player signing, maybe not just in Toronto FC history, but in the history of Major League Soccer. The rebuild cannot start until he leaves. Will it happen this summer, or will it happen at the end of the season when his contract finally expires? That is all that remains to be seen with Lorenzo Insigne. But unless he decides somehow to come back and play this season and actually perform, he will go down in Toronto FC history as the man who made TFC irrelevant for half a decade. That does it for this video. As always, if you'd like to hit like. If you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.